Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name's Andrew and I have a corporate 9 to 5 by day, and by night I make horror comics. And it's been a little while since I made a video about that because actually I've just been working on it in the background, in the behind the scenes kind of way, and sometimes that can seem kind of boring. And I think I was waiting to have something a little bit more finished to show. But then I realized that actually sometimes the process is the interesting bit, and I'm here to show you what I've been working on. So let's get into my sketchbook. If you caught my other videos, you'll have seen me working on some of these pages. This was my first short comic that I did on this channel, and it was all done in watercolor. And it was really just an experiment just to get myself back into the process of making comics and doing something short. And I did everything except the letters by hand. And I think I'm probably going to just let this live online somewhere once I figure out exactly what I want to do with them. A lot of these were really just for my own development. They weren't for anything other than just to learn. But I did print off just a little prototype just to see what it would look like all printed. Obviously the edges and all of that wouldn't be on it if it was a real printed comic, but I just thought it was fun to see. Since finishing this one though, I've been experimenting with a few other techniques for this new comic. So this next comic is also in my Greywater Untold horror anthology series, whatever, and it's called The Slip Road. And so I went through my script and planned all of the different pages out, and that was how I sort of came to do my thumbnails. And so I have roughed it out that it's about 18 pages. Here were just some of the early kind of character designs for my main character in this story, Heather, who is stuck in traffic. She gets caught in a really big, behind a big car crash, and she's very impatient, trying to get away from it, and takes a slip road off the main road, but it leads her through this very peculiar woods around Greywater where very strange things are starting to happen with time and her perception of things. So I was having an experiment with a mixture of watercolor and gouache as well. These were just a few other sketches for some of the panels with both watercolor and gouache as well. And then these were just a few sketches in terms of what the final pages might look like. I was practicing some color and I'm trying to kind of keep it quite limited color as well. This was where I very helpfully left the note for myself. My ink pen that I was using for this wasn't waterproof, so it smeared everything. But that's the point. Live and learn. You make these mistakes in your sketchbook so that you don't make them on the final pages. Recently, I've been experimenting with digital coloring, which is very new for me. I was always very resistant to it in the past and never really understood it. And so I've been trying to dip my toe in just to see if it's something that I like the look of. I'm keeping my palette very simple, so even when I'm doing watercolor, you can see it's quite simple. But I've been practicing little bits here and there, and I think it looks good with the more noir style drawings where it's very reliant on the shadows and the inking. So drawings like this, for example, do tend to look better with very limited color, I think. So I'm trying something like that, especially because the graphic novel that I'm trying to build up to, I think could go either way. It could be watercolor, it could be digital art. And so by the time I get there, having done some of these experiments, I'll have a little bit more experience with both so I can decide what direction I ultimately want to take with it. So I've been working on the final pencils for the Slip Road, and I'm just doing them on regular sketch paper because I don't ink on the same paper that I do my pencils on. I use a Lightbox, and I transfer them onto more sturdy paper. So this doesn't have to be particularly thick or fancy or expensive for that matter. But here is what I've been doing. So I've been kind of laying them out, just kind of drawing the margins. And what I've been finding is a lot of the time I've had to do corrections, and it's been a real lesson for me because I'm quite impatient, and having to go back and fix something is not something I like to do. And I really made myself stop and do it this time. So even on page 1, I wasn't happy with some of the panels. Some of them I was quite tired. And so the proportions or the shading or the composition were just off. And so I would actually make myself go and do it again. Here you can see the thumbnail for that page. The original plan is still pretty similar to how it turned out. And here is the actual bottom panel sketch that I drew in my sketchbook. And I liked this one enough that I just lightboxed it onto some tracing paper so that I could overlay it on top. So now when I go in with my inks, with my lightbox, I'll have all this ready to go. And the same for just this little panel here. I just wasn't happy with the way it was going. But it's been a real lesson in patience and going back and making sure that things are the way you want them to be. You want to spend the time on your work to make it look as good as you can. That top panel was another one that I drew in here, and I just transferred onto some tracing paper with my lightbox. I've been taking a lot of pictures and making a lot of my own references. So I posed for a lot of these, and I was trying to set up the room to have the correct type of lighting, just to sort of try and make it look as good as I could. I'm always aware if you get something wrong, whether it's proportions or shading, the lighting, it stands out for the wrong reasons. And when you do it right, you shouldn't really notice it at all. And so I'm really making the time to go back and do that where I can. Here's an example of where a thumbnail gets changed ever so slightly. This is my sort of narrator character, Mike, the back of his head. So that panel that you've seen there, with all of the evidence and his story spread out before him on his desk. And then it goes into the story where you see an above view of the traffic. But when I actually put it onto the final page, it just seemed quite large and it was a lot of empty space. So I put in this extra panel with the crows flying, and they kind of lead us into the story. So that's just another example of how sometimes things change on the page. More additions I've made like that. Page 3 was originally meant to begin with just a close-up of Heather in her car, and then it moves between the car radio and her sort of rolling her eyes and then calling her friend. But on the final page, I actually wanted to just show a little bit more of that congestion first. So we begin with another close-up of the cars. This one will probably just be all black, and I'm thinking of just having a lot of car honking sounds kind of throughout. And then we get into her close-up there. And I changed this one so that she's rolling her eyes in the rearview mirror so that we get a bit of a different view there as well. So trying to keep it cinematic and play with light and shadow as well. I'm trying to make my pencils as detailed as I can, because I want to make all my decisions in this stage so that when I get to do my inking, all my choices have been made pretty much. I don't have to wonder about where a shadow is supposed to go or what something's supposed to look like. Some comic book artists are so confident where they can just do really loose pencils and then just go in and have so much fun with the ink. I'm not quite there. I'm not sure if I will be, but I also don't have to be. I'm happy to take the time and make all my decisions, or at least most of my decisions, in the penciling stage, so that when I get to the inking, it's done. So another example of where I changed something was in this panel here. Heather is supposed to be storming towards the viewer. She gets out of her car and she decides to walk up the line of traffic to sort of see what's going on. But when I was sort of trying this out, I just didn't quite like it. It didn't have the momentum I wanted. So I decided to change this to her walking this way so that we can kind of really see that kind of storming body language. But when I did it first, the proportions were wrong. Her legs were too short and her head was too low down on the panels. So it just didn't look right. So I redid it on my tracing paper. So again, a decision has been made that saves me inking something and then realizing it's wrong when it's inked. Same here. I had this silhouette of her from behind, but she was too high up. Originally, he was meant to be further back. And because he's not, and I was happy with him, she had to sort of get a little bit modified in that case. And then this panel was quite ambitious for me. I'm not very comfortable a lot of the time drawing cars and buildings and things like that. I'm much more comfortable with people. So I'm trying to challenge myself to do more panels where there's including more scenery. I read something recently that said on a comic page, if you can at least show one panel with the environment, the rest of the panels don't have to show too much in terms of where the characters are. The reader just has to have a sense of where they are. So if one of your panels shows something about their environment, then you're good to go. And then this was the last one that I did. And again, similar thing, just shading, proportions, just improved so that I'm happier with the overall look. What I've been trying to do is when I finish one page, I'll begin another in the same sitting. So I might just rule out the margins and I might just begin the first panel on the next page, because it's helped me continue and keep up my momentum, because I'm not thinking I have to start this. It's more I have to get back to it because it's already started. So that little trick has been really helpful for keeping this comic going. I'm still using the sketchbook just for very, very quick scribblish drawings, just to see what the layout looks like. So that was kind of an original sort of attempt before I tried it here. So this is getting a lot of use. It's almost finished. So when I do my next comic, which I already have my script for, this is going to have to be done in a new sketchbook. These are really just for my own development and to refine my skills and build my confidence. These particular stories aren't meant to be sent out on submission anywhere. It's really just an experiment and an exercise in the craft itself. But I may put them online. I'm looking into other options like Tapas and Webtoon and other options available, just to have somewhere for them to live, and if anyone would like to read them, that they can. So if that goes ahead, I will absolutely let people know if they're interested. And my upcoming plans are that after this one, I have another comic that I want to do, a 22-page one-shot. And I think that one I may actually submit to a few indie publishers that deal in one-shots. There's a couple that I have a list of that I'd love to send something to, and just to see where it may go. And if it doesn't, then it's another comic done and a little bit more experience for me before I dive into this longer piece of work that I'm gearing myself up for. So that's what I'm working on at the moment. One panel, one page at a time. And I'm really enjoying it. It's fun. It's challenging. I'm enjoying the learning, which I think is really the point of it all. But if you like what you see, if you're interested in seeing where this comic goes, how it turns out, if you're interested in following along with the creative process, I'd love to have you along. Please feel free to like and subscribe. And if you're working on any comics yourself, I'd love to hear about them. So hopefully I will see you in the next one. Take care.